This is Songwriting in the All Together with David Rangel, Sohail Khan and James Bar Bowen. In March 2020, as COVID-19 began to stalk the land in earnest, lockdown was declared in the UK and all the gigs were cancelled. We are three songwriters, musicians and performers who happen to live next door to each other in West Yorkshire. And so we decided that in the absence of performance opportunities, we would get together once or twice a week to share some songs and to enjoy each other's company. Gradually, this evolved into a songwriting circle, and we talked more about the craft and industry of what we do to write songs. This series of podcasts is a product of these sessions and conversations. And welcome back to SITA Songwriting in the All Together number 8, and we are gathering after our break from COVID, and we're very lucky tonight to have Monika with us. So Bar's in the room.
Good evening.
David's in the room.
Hi, it's been a long time. It's been a really long time.
I
almost forgot how to talk there.
And myself, Sohail, and of course Monika as well.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so you're a singer-songwriter, aren't you? How have things been during COVID for you? How have things been in terms of everything?
Yeah, so it's been kind of an interesting time creatively, very unproductive, which is what I'd like to speak a bit about today, about the challenges of the lockdown and self-criticism.
Right, yeah. So what challenges have you found during this period?
Yeah, so I think initially, perhaps myself and maybe other musicians too experience this expectation that there will be space and time to do more, but I felt that, and I can't quite put my finger on it why, maybe because of the collective kind of tension that was happening and the limitation of freedoms and stuff. I did feel it was very difficult to create, basically. Right. I did write one song about not being able to go out anymore and tell me what it means to be free, kind of thing, because you do question those things. But I don't want to play it today because everybody's had enough of lockdown. I mean, I'm going to go back there, we're going to go forward.
Lockdown tunes.
So in normal times then, assuming the last year and a half hasn't been normal times, what would you do normally, and what's your kind of like your productivity, your creativity, and where do you perform? What do you do? Do you record? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I do have. I believe there's like a cycle in creativity, and for me there are usually periods where I don't create, and then very productive periods when I do. And I don't really chase it myself. I kind of let the songs come to me, let the creative come to me. I think it's about being available and being prepared. And if I'm too busy, maybe I feel creative, but it doesn't go anywhere because I'm not there to respond to it. But when I do have the space and time, and usually when I'm involved in things, when I'm going to gigs and I'm comparing the open mic, usually ideas come and it is easier to feel creative. Yeah. So I do occasional gigs, and I've got one album out, and then do recordings every now and then, and starting a bit of just before lockdown, started a bit of cooperation with other people, which you will hear some of that later on.
Great. So that's it then. It's just been a bit of a shake-up then, really, hasn't it, since we've had the pandemic, and just knowing that like there was a certain kind of, like you say, it came in cycles, but you were familiar with it, and then there's this unfamiliarity now, which has kind of left you without that cycle. It's kind of
so
could be quite new for you.
So the part of the cycle that when you don't create becomes longer. It becomes almost a year, and that is you and I've had other people feeling this as well. You start to question: am I still a musician? Am I still a singer-songwriter if I don't write, if I don't sing, if I don't perform? But it is like a longer winter, you know, and you do have to have that faith that in yourself and in creativity that it will come back. There is an author called Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and she's a storyteller and a writer. She wrote a very famous book, Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Oh, I know that book, yes.
There's a wolf on the wall, actually. Yeah.
There you go.
Very, very famous.
Very fitting.
Yeah. And she writes about a fire of creativity, which in itself is such a beautiful idea. Fire of creativity, and you know that's how it feels when you create it. You got this fire burning, and you don't care about anything. You just do your own thing, and you kind of consumed by it. And then she says sometimes the fire goes out, but it's okay because there's the embers left behind the fire.
Okay.
And as long as you've got the embers, then you can start the fire again. And then she says something really comforting, and I really hold on to in times like last year. She says, you know, the embers never really go out for anyone. So if you can get yourself into a situation where you can nourish yourself and nourish your creativity and do little bits and bobs, and you know, there can be small things, I believe, for me, like playing one of my old songs, just picking up the guitar, or going for a walk, or I did some painting the other day, and just being able to lose yourself in the doing and have that playfulness and that freedom to just be in the moment. I think all that nourishes the
It's quite cool what you said about the embers, actually, because like I feel the same way. Like I took about 2.5 years where I didn't do anything. You know, I thought like, all right, I'm not doing it anymore, do it as a bit of a hobby or whatever, but you know, I wanted to focus on other things, and then I just missed it after 2.5 years when somebody it just started up again, and thought like, geez, like this is me, this is always with me, it never goes away, so yeah, cool.
Brilliant. That's really great. It's really great to hear about that and the embers and how to nurse your creativity. And you've brought your guitar with you, haven't you?
I have.
You have, and you're going to sing us a song kind of live, because we've got some recorded songs as well that you've done. But the first song of the evening is a live song. Would you like to talk a little bit about that before we play?
Yeah. So this song is called Lose My Mind. And I chose it as the first song because I thought it would fit with the themes, because it's a little bit about the struggles of writing and of being in that free state of mind where you're just not preoccupied by anything, and you can receive, you know, what comes to you without stopping yourself. I think that's one of the biggest barriers, that we stop ourselves, don't we? We've got an idea, oh, it's not very good enough, or no, not right now, or no, I don't have time, or I'll remember it, I'll write it down later, and all these things just go. So this song is about the struggle to lose your mind.
Thank you.
in the unknown. Well, we don't know. You said you only go one shot, so make it last. And I said that there is truth at the bottom of the whiskey glass.
After such a long break.
Yeah, live music, climax.
Yeah, here we are. We're awake again.
So we talked quite a lot about lack of inspiration, lack of creativity when the embers are dying down. So go on, talk to us about when you are creative, when you have been creative. What are the things that light your fire, that make you burn, make you really want to write, want to express yourself? What do you write about? What do you think about?
Yeah, so one of the big ones is nature. So loads of the songs I've written are all somehow linked to nature, or have been written whilst I've been outside, or the ideas come to me, when I've been thinking about being outside. So nature bit is a big one. And then most of them, although not all of them, and I think you find that with singer-songwriters quite a lot, they're very personal. They kind of become extension of yourself, almost like another way to speak, or another way, how you wear clothes. You've got songs that resonates with.
Yeah. So it's another form of expressing yourself, isn't it? More so.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and you can beautifully see it at the open mics. For people that don't know, I before COVID, I used to regularly compare an open mic, and you just get to know the people from such a different angle when you hear their music, because it's so personal, and that's something that I really love. So somehow they're usually somehow linked to.
But would you not say that that's actually very much coming out of an American and probably kind of quite individualistic tradition, whereas actually lots of different. I mean, I noticed like how you play that song, that kind of comes out of a sort of Anglo-American structure, chord structure, melody, and all the rest of it. But obviously that's not the only way to be a singer-songwriter.
No, absolutely not. But you asked about how.
This is I'm kind of interested in sort of digging down a bit into.
Yeah, it is very true.
What your, why you take that approach? Do you think, or is it just that's obvious because that's the one that comes to you, or
yeah, I am bothered about the individualism of the society and the way we are, of the fact that everything is about oneself, and
me.
and I've tried very hard. Although the songs are personal to me, I tried very hard for them to be universal for other people to relate to, and in none of them, you know, you can tell exactly what they are about. You can't, you know, I even try to not use the word I too much or make the story really about me. I do try to make it universal so it fits. But I don't think about how I write. I don't think about how I play. I'm not trying to make it a certain way or the other. You know, that's just I started writing music a few years ago, and that's what it is. And I don't analyze it. I don't try to change it. Maybe it changes through my own life and my own experience. But yeah, I don't look at it that way.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a joke I always do on stage when I say, "Oh, this song is about something, a story that's completely not to do with me." But of course, it's all about me because I'm a singer-songwriter. And I think, you know, we all understand that. You know, it's that problem about, you know, being a creative. That of course it's all about me because it's it's me creating something. But I think there's a really interesting tension there about, again, how do you do that sort of idea of the universal subjectivity? How do you tell your own story but make it so that me, the audience, when you're telling your story, that I can feel there's a bit of me in there, or I can understand.
I haven't thought about this though, because like as an audience, I try and put myself in the shoes of the listener, and thinking about it, it's almost like when you're listening to a piece of music, you're almost putting yourself, like, especially if you sing along, you put yourself in the position, and then you're singing the lyrics, and then suddenly it is about the listener, you know. So, but yeah, what would you think about, like, is it?
How do you make it universal? That's what you said.
Does the listener make it universal, or does the songwriter make it universal?
I personally would say the songwriter is, you're in charge, you're on stage, you're the...
You can never influence the perspective of somebody who will listen to you, so you kind of have to let go of that. I want my music to somehow contribute and make life richer or more beautiful or better in some small way. And going back to that author, because she speaks a lot about creativity, does Clarissa, she actually says that one of the ways to reach people and to make, you know, to make your work unique but significant to people is simply to be truthful. To say something that is true to you and to be honest in your music. And, you know, that seems kind of true to me.
Yeah. I mean, that idea of artistic authenticity, you know, they believe in you if you believe in yourself, kind of thing. Yeah.
So we've got another song from you, Monika, but this one's one that you submitted. It's The Turtle. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so Turtle is a kind of chilled out, relaxed song. It's one of the kind of most easygoing songs I've ever written. It's about a fantasy world where you imagine yourself lying at the bottom of the ocean, watching the world go by. And yeah, it actually, it's probably the most popular song. People really like it. So yeah.
Well, let's hear it.
Let's see what you think.
Yeah. Sounds great.
these rounds of applause.
We always do.
that.
Because well, no, it's just
we're polite.
It's fabulous though, just to hear other stuff, new music. Always a privilege.
Just to show appreciation.
Yeah. We started this just in the garage, and we were just playing songs to each other and everything. But like we realised, like suddenly when you start bringing guests in, there's just this whole new dynamic. Because we're used to each other now. We're used to each other's styles and what we do. So to hear this and like just a song like that with Turtle and like everything you said before about being inspired by nature, and it just takes me back into that simplicity. That simplicity in life, which
It's hard to get.
It's hard to get. It's really hard.
It's quite complicated to be simple.
I look at my own music and I think like, gosh, I seem like such a complex person, and you see, like your music really reflects how you, maybe not so much at the moment, but previously were able to escape. And like you say, you're an outdoorsy person. You're all about that nature, and that's what inspires you. So, but it really takes listening to something like that to just kind of for it to actually hit you. So yeah, awesome. So yeah, I want to talk a bit more, I want to talk about the other side of things. Like we're going back to the whole mental health topic that we've got here. We live in a culture now where social media is pretty much everything, when you go out and everything else like this. I want to talk about the, maybe the pros of it, but also the toxic element of it. What for you as a singer-songwriter, how do you define like your success? Are you big with social media? Do you do a lot of it? Do you think that it's an important role for you to have some kind of presence? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it somewhere in between? Because we can't really live without it, can we?
I think we can. But I think it's sneaked into our lives in a very cheeky way, and it's very difficult to cut it out. So I've been actually trying to get rid of Facebook, but then there's people I don't connect to any other way, and just to message them all and be like, here's my email address, it just would not happen. And then I connect through Messenger with my family in the Czech Republic, so it becomes increasingly difficult to get rid of it. And I don't think you can actually do your account. You can just kind of close it. It's strange, but I do try to limit my time I'm on it, because I think the more time you spend on it, the more time you spend on it. It grows on you. And I do have a page, and I do share music there, and that's, as you said, it's for me. I'm not on Spotify. I don't really want to be on more platforms. So it is the one platform I already have that I use, and the following that I have, well, those people are very dear to me, so I don't want to just scrap that. But I didn't like, and I still don't like, that if I put something there, I didn't watch, and I'm addicted, and I want to know like how is it doing? Do people like it? Do people not like it? And I really want to cultivate that way of being, where you just put something out there and you let it go and you let it be. I've been thinking about whether I will listen back to this podcast or not, and obviously part of me wants to listen to him, but part of me is like, no, I just want to maybe share it, but let it go. I don't want to dwell on it. I don't want to listen back to myself, and I was there. I've heard
there,
it.
Yeah. I mean, is that for you then? Do you feel that like when it comes to being an artist and being a musician, do you feel that to get it out there is enough? Do you think that that's enough for you? Like, it's this therapy for you to sort of write what's on your mind and how you feel, and to get it out? And because I always said, like, if I get 1 listener or 1 million listeners, it's neither here nor there for me. And then I released something when I started looking at Facebook every 5 minutes to see how many likes it got. But but I did always say that to myself, like, if it's getting too much, strip it back. Why am I actually doing this? It's just a form of expression.
I think the difficult thing is that it's never enough. You get 3 lovely comments, and then you watch for more, and then somebody says just something neutral, and you're like, well, why did they not say something better? Or you get, like on YouTube you get 100 views, like that's a lot of people, 100 people watching your stuff, but it doesn't seem very much compared to, like, I don't know,
whoever's got 500,000, millions,
so it's just is never enough, and you don't appreciate what you have, you just want more and more. It's very, I think social media make us greedy, don't they? We want to see more.
It's how it's designed as well. It's
yeah.
that it is that sort of feeding into that sort of addictive thing that you want, the somehow whatever it is, the
dopamine rush. That's it.
Of that somebody likes me, somebody I've never met, and I don't know why they liked me. It might be because they were pissed and they clicked on.
In some type of therapy, is it behavior therapy or transactional analysis? I'm not sure now, but it's called strokes. We want strokes, little strokes. You know, you're doing okay. I'll give you a like. You know, you're being. You know, the external world has to tell you, but if it doesn't come from you, it's never enough. So to answer your question, David, about how I have with my music, I don't always share music that I write or poems that I write. Some of it is just for me, but the things that I feel like I want to share, it just
so to a degree, you still want your audience, don't you? The audience is still important.
I think the sharing is important in general with other people. I think it gives your work a life on its own, and it takes it to a different dimension, you know. And it's a way of interacting with other people. I think it's very enriching for you and for other people if you share your work.
Sure.
It's one of the most daunting steps at the beginning.
I suppose the difference between sharing and then just like really being that desperate to get every man and his dog to hear it, I suppose that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why that's why I am reluctant to like put more into like my musical career, if you want to call it that. Because I don't want to get into the race of pushing my work on people. I don't want to. But
it is a very difficult. You know, it's always that juggling between, you know, art and capitalism, if you like. That actually being a creative is great, but if you're trying to make a living, then suddenly there is an imperative to feed the social media stuff, to do that. And I would say it sort of feeds a sort of almost like an authoritarian reaction, that you're always trying to please teacher, or you're always trying to please somebody else, and it's, you know, very difficult.
It is very difficult, but it's the world we live in, so that's how you negotiate.
But I think you have to ask yourself what you really want. You know, and maybe for me the answer was I don't want to connect my music to money. I just can't do the two. It ruins the music for me. So I have it completely separate, and that way I'm much happier. The music's much better, and I'm not depending on it, and I don't have to push my music onto anyone. You know, I printed some CDs when I published an album, and I think I gave half of them away because I just like people are like that are in my circle that I know. I don't want.
You just want people to hear it at the end of the day.
And the music is a gift. Why should they pay? You know.
But then I would say that from the other side of that, though, unfortunately, if you are trying to make a living doing that, then
you play a very different game.
And it's like, how do we do that? Well, because also if you're giving away your music for free or doing gigs for free, then you're also undermining the people who are trying to make a living. I mean, I'm just throwing that in as a thought.
I understand how difficult it is, and you know, respect all the musicians, and how do you do it? You have to ask somebody that does it. You know, I don't. So yeah.
Okay, you have a song for us.
Oh yep, I do. Let me just get this.
So could you tell us a little bit about this, Monika, this next song that you're going to sing live for us?
So this song is called Motorway Lullaby, and it was written when I was doing the Coast to Coast. So I solo hiked it about 3 years ago. You have to add a year to everything now after COVID. I think it's probably 3 years. And I was at a bit of a breaking point at this point. So I went on this journey to partly document, the project was called Wainwriting Songs, so to do the Coast to Coast by, you know, that was kind of put together by Alfred Wainwright, and write about the experience.
Okay.
But it was kind of difficult because you know, the idea and the doing is very different, and it's actually a pretty tough hike. People make it look like it's kind of very scenic and gorgeous, which it is, but it's also really tough. And I was about halfway through and I felt really ill. I felt like this is going to either make me or break me. I might have to wake up tomorrow and just go home. I felt really unwell, really weak, really run down. And I went into my tent and there was this really busy road nearby as well. So like I lied down and I was like, oh my God, is there a truck coming right at me? And I could hear this really busy road just all the time. And then I fell asleep and then I woke up about 3:30 and the song just came to me, you know, and I think it's interesting. It shows the mysterious way that creativity works, because obviously I had all my guards down. I was too tired to listen to the critics or to even be thinking. I was too exhausted to I don't know, try to make something of it. I just kind of captured it on my phone, sang the melody, and then sent it into the song, and it's called Motorway Lullaby.
Brilliant, thank you.
It's not black, it is grey. I can hear a motorway. The ground is wet and I am cold. And tonight I'm feeling old. I don't want this journey to break my back. The real things we carry, we didn't pack. But for now, I close my eyes and let it be. Just for now, close your eyes and rest your feet and go to sleep. Cars don't stop, they sound like waves. And if they never stop, when does it end? Where do they have to go at 3:30? I'd like to know. I don't want this journey to break my back. The real things we carry, we didn't pack. But for now, close your eyes and let it be. And just for now, close your eyes and rest your feet and go to sleep. Rather what keeps you awake at this early hour, with no map or destination or GPS navigation. I hope you get there. I hope you get there. I hope you get there soon. I hope you get there. I hope you get there soon. I hope you get there. I hope you get there soon. I hope you get there. I hope you get there soon. But for now, I close my eyes and let it be. And just for now, I close my eyes and rest my feet. They'll try to sleep.
Thank you. Wow. So I suppose, do you think we can find a different way from what we were talking about as singer-songwriters, as people who make creative work? And has lockdown taught us anything, do you think, as creatives?
It's a really good question, I think we all have to ask ourselves, don't
Yes.
we? What was the can we as musicians find a better way as creatives?
Do you think we can find a better way? Well, from what we were kind of discussing before, this whole thing about the media, being in the loop, being out of the loop in terms of trying to make everything kind of work for us or deciding not to work for us. What do you think might be a different way as artists?
I think we can always find a better way, can't we?
Yeah.
And I think we need to find freedom. And you know, while you were saying about people having to earn a living, you know, I know that's really, really real, and I don't want to, you know, I kind of in a position where I don't have to think about it in relation to music. It's kind of a privileged position in that way, but I think even if you make music for money or make money from music, you have to find your creative freedom and your independence and somehow escape from the race and from the media, and you know, from the social media, from the pressures, from the expectations, and
because there's a lot of breakdowns that happen in music. That's the thing. It's kind of like, you know, we take for granted, like, as part of the parcel with rock and roll, you know, mental health problems, but also death as well, and you know, all sorts of horrible
Booze
things
and drugs.
stuff. Booze, drugs. It's ways of handling it. Ways of handling
it's
life.
part of it's part of the joy and a part of the disaster.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, there's all kinds of stories out there, and you think that, like, you know, at what point does this become not enjoyable?
yeah. So I think the better way is to listen to ourselves, you know, to make space and reflect on what we want, how we want to live, what do we really want, and then go out and live our lives, and adjust things if you find that, well, I thought, yeah, it happens, doesn't it? It happened in my life. I thought this is what I wanted, but it's not. So let's change things. But change is difficult.
But I would say, you know, that's a really interesting point, though. Kind of, you're saying, like, about, you know, not, you know, as creatives, do your creative thing as yourself, and it doesn't matter what they think. But of course, one of the things that we do as creatives also is we're creating for an audience, for other people. You know, you understand what I mean? That it's kind of like, you know, sometimes you write just for yourself or whatever, and I think we all do that, but sometimes that's part of the creative process. But fundamentally, you know, whether it's also, again, I don't know, I'm struggling to find the words, because it's about that thing that are we just showing off? Are we just seeking affirmations from elsewhere as a creative artist, because you create your art and you hope that there's some comeback on it, and you can't escape that, and it's like, what? So therefore, what do you do with that? And I think social media obviously, you know, feeds into that and makes that an even more tricky path to tread.
I think you know yourself why you make music, you know, and why you share it, and yeah. It's an interesting point, but nobody like that. Yes, there are people that just seek approval and that just want the pat on the back, but there's so many people that don't, you know, that genuinely just want to share because that's what we do as humans, and creativity enriches everybody's life.
Sorry, I have this thing where I say, like, I find it hard to communicate exactly what I mean in conversation. So that's why it's important for me to get music out, to kind of say, you get a better idea of who I am by listening to my music than you do from having a conversation with me. And I think it's like you had said with songs before, like with things like using maybe metaphor or something, stuff which is just slightly you know, a little bit, like, it's not explicit, you don't use the I, you don't make it explicit about what it's about. It means something really personal to you, but then at the same time you're getting it out and it makes sense for you and you communicate it in that kind of way. But there's a reason why you do it in a song as opposed to literally using the way that you write your lyrics and stuff in general conversation. You know, this is a conversation, but we bring the music into it, and it's something different. You know, and it gives us a different experience. So I think for me, like, definitely, there's a big element of communication. You know, communication and how we want to get it out. Where, you know, pushing the ego to one side, like I said before, a freedom of self-expression.
Mm-hmm. I think there's an interesting thing, because I've got this thing that we talked about in discussion before we had this meeting, and kind of coming back to mental health, and how does creativity make mental health better and more wholesome for us, and what do you do with the sadness and transforming things through the creative act. And I think personally for me that's really important. It's a little bit like what you're saying, but to me it's also about trying to make something a little bit more concrete through the act of using a different way of expressing myself than I would normally do.
When you said what you're saying, he looked at me, by the way. just for the record. he wasn't talking to Monika at that time, he was talking to me.
I don't know, you know, maybe that's what we all do. I'm just curious about that, because I think it's not just about mental health, it's about well-being, being well in yourself.
So all the three things that you all said link together. So where you started by saying, you know, why do we create, why do we do it, and I think if you're musical, you don't even have to consider yourself as a musician, but if you're musical, you cannot not to, you know, like it gets to a point where you just have to write or play, or you might even feel an urge, you know, I need to share this with someone, because otherwise, you know, you kind of kill the work you created if you put it in the cellar, you know, it's like it never existed. So you give it some validity by sharing it, even if it's just with one person that you trust. And I think that is part of how we keep ourselves well, and music and dance and art and, you know, community that's all linked together has been part of, you know, humanity since ever. And is a huge part of our well-being, you know, and it transforms people when because they, you know, connect through music, and they connect through hearing things that you say, and yes, also what you said, Sohail, about the sadness, you know, music is a very powerful way. Like, what do you do with the sadness? What do you do when something happens, you know, and we all have our own process of dealing with things, but creativity or just doing something, even if it's, you know, walking or writing or I don't know, just doing something actively with it, I think is a really powerful tool to make sense of things.
I was just thinking about how we were expressing stuff, and I was just curious to ask myself the question is, what if there was a law tomorrow passed and no one was allowed to do anything creative? All art stopped now because everything had been said before over thousands and
Sounds
thousands
like
of years.
lockdown, actually.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a curious one. What would people start to do? Because then no more film, no more books, no more TV, no more drama, no more storytelling, no more poetry, no more music, no more playing, no more anything. You stop, just live your life, and you're not having any kind of creative input or output whatsoever. And I think people would go mad very quickly.
Yeah.
But I think to play devil's advocate to some extent, there is a point about being a creative, or being a singer-songwriter, if you like, since that's what we are. That music or performance is not therapy. Music can be therapy, songwriting can be therapy. But I think as a performer, you also have an obligation to entertain somehow, or to. Do you see what I mean? So there's lots of different things going on.
I wouldn't agree with. I don't know. I'm not going to take over here, but I wouldn't agree. I think it's all therapy to a certain extent.
Well,
because it's about sharing a story and getting recognition within that.
Yeah, no, I
helps to make you creative.
I understand what you're saying because yeah, and like Dave was saying about that thing about writing songs. You know I've written songs because I haven't been able to say that thing, but I can sing that thing. I can write that thing as a song, But I'm also kind of quite critical of this idea that because as we all know, you go to enough open mic sessions, and there's some pretty grim stuff going on where somebody has come on to sing their song as therapy, and it's not very well done. And actually, I feel that as a performer, you have an obligation to also entertain.
It's very difficult, because what do you mean by entertain? There's some sad songs, extremely sad songs that people play that are extremely beautiful and
No,
you feel enriched. But I also hear what you're saying, and this is just my personal view. You know, people have to do what feels is right for them. But my personal view is that I am very careful about sharing songs that are extremely sad and writing those songs and putting them out there. You know, I think when it's really something very depressing that you're trying to put out there, you should be careful, I think, or you should think who you're sharing it with.
No, I know I'm on shaky ground here, and I'm not completely convinced about my own argument, but I think it's important to raise that point.
I think that there can be some music that's just is so hard to hear because of the pain can be so raw, but then it can help those people that perform it, I guess, by expressing it, by being heard. So it is, you can see it from both perspectives, but personally I am always very careful of what I write, what I create, what I'm saying when I sing, and how will that impact on others. That is, if I was in a very sad way and wrote something, I probably wouldn't share it. And I would maybe share it privately, but not in a public space.
Well, that's the thing, and then that's when it comes into therapy, because I remember, like, going back to social media, I remember years ago on Twitter seeing some promotion guy basically saying all these performers who think that they're going to make it big in their bedroom and all this kind of stuff, and I felt the pressure to get out of the bedroom at that point, and I thought, like, yeah, you're right, I've got to go out and do this and this, but then I thought, like, well, why? But that's the next stage, right? The moment where you say, like, I'm going to put myself on stage and be a performer, that's the next stage. But I think where it starts is in the bedroom. It's writing those tears on paper. If it's something sad or happy, even it's putting the good stuff on the paper as well. So some people might just be happy just having that as an outlet, or just akin to writing in your diary or something.
But then it's there's a bigger question then about social media makes this idea that instead of like you and me having a conversation round from your front door to my front door used to be a thing, whereas now we can go on Facebook and 100 people might listen, 1,000 people might listen, whatever. And I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about how then debate has become a different thing, because it becomes much more this thing about it's become performance as well. So instead of just you and me having an argument over the table in the pub, and I disagree with you, you disagree with me, and eventually we either have a fight or we agree to differ, now it becomes this big thing that we're all doing it while performing to them over there. And so that also affects the nature of, I guess, performance, because as performers, we're also talking about doing stuff in public, and it's all blurred and grey areas. And like I say, I'm on shaky ground here, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, no, I do know what I'm talking about, but I don't have any solid conclusions. But I do think it's really interesting to.
So what I hear a little bit, there's something about how do we deal with criticism that we receive, or with differing opinion that we receive, through social medias. And the question is how much you can really engage, no matter how much you write, no matter how much you express yourself exactly how you'd like, it might not change the other person's opinion. And I was listening to a talk by Satish Kumar. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
He's an activist, and he's a big believer, in supporting the natural world. He walked from India to like 8,000 miles to all across the world, a message of peace. This is, I don't know, in the 60s or something. And he actually went and delivered some tea bags to the leaders of the world, so to France and Russia and America and London, New York and London. So if they were to press the nuclear weapon button, they'd sit down and have a cup of tea to think about it first. And you know, and he says, talking about tea, he says, if you want to change somebody's opinion, somebody was asking him in this debate, you know, how do you change somebody's opinion when, you know, people have got such twisted views? And he said, you go and see the person and you invite them for a cup of tea and you sit down with them, and then once they drink the tea with you, because you invited them and you welcomed them, their heart's already opened. And that's when you speak to them and you try to understand their perspective and you try to offer them your perspective. And you can see how social media is just like 1,000 miles away from this, you know. You don't even know who you're talking to. I mean, how on earth, it only exists there to argue. Everybody's just going to argue. There's not going to be any enrichment or resolution. Everybody just... It's the individualistic, I just put my opinion there, it's my opinion, I'm entitled to it, here it is, and that's what every single person thinks.
I love that. Social media misses the tea. I'm going to take that. That's true.
It's true, but in defence of social media, of course, there are some really nice debates where people say, okay, we're not going to have any of that nonsense. This is a genuine question. What do you think? How do we find out? And people do talk and share, and that's the real benefit of social media. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, I know it connects people and makes people less isolated, you know. And I guess during COVID, all the online connections have become more significant. But I don't think it should be a replacement. I don't think you can have the same depth
It's not the same energy as being around a campfire with people playing music and singing and chatting and children running around and everybody, the dogs and cats kind of doing stuff.
And just the fact that if you have a conversation like us here, you arrive and you sit and you're there and you look
find
at each
your
other.
moment as well, and that's different from, because it's on demand.
I mean, people replying to you on the bus and on the toilet whilst they walk, you know, like there's no presence.
And no responsibility as well, which is the other side of it. Yeah. You know, there's no responsibility for your actions. Which is the other side of it. So it's larger, unless you really...
Which is a whole other issue about responsibility as an artist and performer.
Okay.
We'll come on.
Is there anything we want to finish with, or kind of sum up, or talk at the end of this discussion before we play the last track?
I want to ask you a question, Monika, because obviously, like with lockdown, you said there's been less creativity going on. How do you see the future? How do you see the next 6 months now that things are starting to open up? Are you starting to, not just songwriting, but are you starting to get back into your old way of living, or have things changed? What do you think?
They talk about the new normal, don't they? But nobody knows what it is.
Well, they were talking about the new normal when everything was really locked down. I was thinking, like, I really hope not. You know, I really hope that we can get away from this new normal and go back to how things were. But I mean,
the abnormal normal.
The abnormal normal, yeah, I'm more comfortable there.
But you're saying it wasn't quite normal before, right?
Well, it's like those big...
It's
like a meme that I have on Facebook. It's like, we don't want to return to normal. We want to have a better world, which is more fair and equitable and caring. That's what we want. You know, so that's graffiti that someone put up, and I've seen a few times on Facebook and social media that people have put that up. We don't want to go back to normal because normal was horrible before. You know?
I think we often talk about the world and how we want it to be. But I think we all have to start really so much smaller. You know, and I also forget, you know, I create the life around me. I'm part of it, and I do get carried away, and I forget I've got a certain power to change things and live differently and contribute to that kinder and better world, you know, and I kind of feel like, oh no, I'm doing my bit, but you know, I can always be kinder, and I can be sorry, I'm just laughing because earlier today I'm looking after this cat, which is a really lovely cat. I'm looking after it for someone, but the cat's not allowed to go on the kitchen table, and it was getting on the kitchen table, and I was grabbing it and putting it down, and And I was obviously careful with the cat. I love cats, so I wouldn't harm them or anything. But I could feel my energy. I was so angry at this cat because she was jumping on this table, but she was just jumping on a table. She was not even trying to piss me off, you know.
Right, a little bit. The more you put the cat on the table, the more they'll go on it.
And then I kind of thought, oh jeez, I can't even not be angry at the cat for jumping on a table, you know. I've got some way to go here. So I think it's personally, we going back and we're not going back. I am still very cautious with the cases being so high. It's kind of scary, and I guess just wanting to be outside and enjoy the summer, and I think that's what lockdown has left us with, you know, this desire to live, to be alive, to do things. So the things I feel able to do, I want to be doing, and whether that's stuff like this or going on a little adventure, being outside, swimming, talking to people, and yes, continuing to work on the kinder and better self, and I think slow down as well. I feel like I'm behind a lot of the time, chasing my own tail kind of thing. So I'd like to get into a different habitual energy of having time rather than not having time.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
I'm going to make lots of radical performance art, which is going to upset lots of people, but I don't care. That's what I'm doing. In Bar's garage, and I already have started doing it outside in Bradford. So
you've gone back to the abnormal, have you?
I've gone back to stuff that's I'm passionate about stuff like colonialism, post-colonialism, untold stories. I'm passionate about, you know, the society needs to have a more balanced view. This culture that we live in now, especially since it seems to be going more right-wing, needs to look more at itself and look at its past in order to understand where it wants to go in the future. So that's where I am right now. And some of that is about upsetting people.
I don't know. I'm struggling with creativity. I wrote 2 songs last year. I haven't written a song yet this year, and I'm hoping to get some inspiration. I've got a gig next week. I'm hoping to sort of, I feel to sort of test the water and feel how other people feel, because I've talked to a lot of people about, you know, going back into the sort of live music forum. We don't really know what we're doing.
Yes.
You know, and I'm so I don't know.
It's very difficult as well to create under pressure. I feel when I haven't written for a while, I feel pressure. Oh no, I need to write something, and then it makes it harder to create.
Yeah, no, I've learned to let that one go, or I try to.
Yeah, it will come when it comes.
I'm the other way. I'm gonna keep releasing. I actually managed to get a good few songs written during the lockdown, and we've got a backlog of stuff. Like I say, I've been making up for lost time after taking a bit of time out, so I've been really quite excited and for that. Playing live, not so much, just because I've got the same cautious concerns. Being out and about is dangerous. I've known people with COVID, and it's really as horrific as you could imagine. So I just really want to sort of just keep getting music out in some way. I kind of feel this is kind of like a weird sort of almost like wartime thing, but just different. The enemy is more but not only the virus but the politics of it. So I think that back in the war, where it was about just we were lucky, people were lucky they had a radio, and to be able to hear a song or two. So as long as it's there somewhere, as long as we can release it and deal with, adapt to the situation at hand, and for me, I'm happy. Yeah, just putting tracks out and hoping people like them.
So should we tie up there? I believe, Monika, we've got one more song of yours, but we can do our farewells and end there.
Yeah, we'd have to close on the song, wouldn't it?
Yeah, okay.
Lovely. Well, let me just say thank you very much, Monika. I'm glad that we actually managed to meet all together.
Yeah.
In the same room, legally.
Legally.
Yeah,
we did all our tests. And thank you very much for talking to us and talking with us. And we've finished with this last song. Would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, thank you very much
Yeah?
for inviting me. I felt very privileged to be here, and thanks for sharing your opinion. So this last song is not just mine. So there we go. We broke the individualism. So this song was written with my friend Mike Harper, and he's written the music, and I've written the words. Although I once joked that I just kind of uncovered the words that were already in the music. He also plays the piano very beautifully. In the song you will hear him. And it's a work in progress, is this piece of music. And there will be some more development with it, and there is actually some more stuff happening with it at the moment. But this is a version that I wanted to share at this point in time, and it's about a river, and I guess about the flow of things and how they're in nature. Just naturally comes times where things happen.
Okay,
that's
and it's called
River.
River. Okay, thank you, Monika. Here it is.